As you can see, you already know we're in for a treat in hearing all of the things that Marcie's doing, and she mentioned a fresh wind. How did you come up with that concept? What inspired you?
What inspired me is basically was in a space, and it was birthed out of being in a low space. I know we've all been there before, when we've been depressed, sad, or when life was taking us through different challenges. And so for me, it just happened to be during it was in our marriage. It was a bad time in our marriage, and I was forced. I had a conversation with God. I was like, God, listen, you got to do something. Because I can't be in this space forever. So he challenged me to think positive about my relationship, my husband, and my life for 30 days.
Welcome to the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast, a podcast about becoming 1% better every day. And now your host, yours truly, Clarence Stowers. Hey everyone, it's Clarence E. Stowers Jr., host of the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast, a podcast about becoming 1% better every day. This podcast focuses on inspiring and equipping highly motivated individuals and creatives to take decisive action and level up in all areas of life while producing their best work. This week's episode, The Overlook Leader, Overlooked by Others, Handpicked by God. There are amazing leaders, phenomenal leaders, who are crushing it every single day, but don't have the visibility of celebrity leaders. The purpose of this episode is to highlight the overlooked leader and help them build their platform while gaining visibility. What does it mean to be overlooked by others, but yet be handpicked by God? And I'm excited today to be here to converse with another spectacular leader, phenomenal leader. And it gives me great joy, because not only is she a phenomenal leader within her own right, and of course my sister, but what's most important is the perspective. As men, we see life, we see scripture, we see all that we experience through an interpretive lens of what it means to be a man in manhood. And what I love about women who lead is they see it from a totally different perspective. They see it through the eyes of their experiences, and we are afforded the opportunity to hear leadership in a unique way from a woman's perspective, but most importantly, a woman's perspective in a field that's dominated by men. A field where the thought patterns and processes are determined by men. So this is different. Being overlooked not only as a phenomenal woman, but being overlooked in a space that was at one point considered quote unquote man space. So we're about to go there. So I want you to help welcome to today's podcast an outstanding leader in her own right, a friend, of course, my family, but a young woman whom I've learned so much from, and the world gets the opportunity to experience the myriad of talent and wealth she brings to the table. So everyone, here's what I'd like for you to do. I want you to welcome to the podcast our very own Minister Marcie Wilson. Hey girl, what's up?
What's up? What's up? Thank you so much for letting me come on and be with you today. Oh my God, this is so exciting.
It is. It is. And what makes it exciting, of course, who don't know now, we're related. Marcie is the youngest of all my siblings. I have 4 sisters. 3 are older. 1 is youngest. Marcie is officially the youngest of the Stowers crew, the Fantastic 5. As we call ourselves. Don't hate, get your own name.
Right.
But she's here today not as my sister, but she's here because she's an outstanding leader, and she's going to give us a unique perspective of what it means to be overlooked by others, especially in quote-unquote man space, but yet handpicked by God. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Marcie Wilson?
Well, Marcie Wilson is a fresh wind. Anybody who knows me and follows me, they know that I always try to bring a fresh wind, a fresh perspective, a fresh breath of air in everything that I say and do. So I'm all about making things positive, not ignoring your reality, but choosing to see God in every situation. And once you see God in your situation, you can't help but to take a breath and take in a fresh wind. So in a nutshell, that's who I am. You know, I try to bring positivity to every space that I'm in, and to make sure that no person leaves my presence feeling down, depressed, or sad. Because we could take in a fresh wind anytime in any space. So that's who I am in a nutshell. I am also a wife. I am a mom, and I am also the social media director at Marcie Anywhere. And I'm so glad to be back in that space as well, because we get to build the legacy of our parents together.
Woohoo! I second that. And what a phenomenal job she's doing in that regard. As you can see, you already know we're in for a treat in hearing all of the things that Marcie's doing. And she mentioned a fresh wind. How did you come up with that concept? What inspired you?
What inspired me is it was birthed out of being in a low space. I know we've all been there before, where we've been depressed, sad, or when life was taking us through different challenges. And so for me, it just happened to be during it was in our marriage, and it was a bad time in our marriage. And I was forced, I had a conversation with God. I was like, God, listen, you got to do something because I can't be in this space forever. So he challenged me to think positive about my relationship, my husband, and my life for 30 days. I couldn't speak bad about him. I couldn't speak bad about our relationship, and I couldn't speak any negative thoughts. And so in order to do that, I had to change literally how I was thinking. And so out of that, for 30 days, I had a positive thought about everything. And so in that 30 days, I ended up writing a whole book about it. It's called Journey to Love. And so through my most painful time in life, a fresh wind was birthed. And so after, you know what they say, anything you do for 30 days becomes a habit.
Yes.
So after 30 days, Fred, which is my husband, he was like, he thought something was wrong with me because he knew that we were in a bad space. But here I was being positive and sending affirmations and scriptures and stuff. He was like, is this girl trying to kill me? And she's trying to butter me up. So in that, that's how a fresh wind was born. And after those 30 days, I was writing all of those affirmations and scriptures down, and it ended up turning into a book. And so that book has transformed so many lives. And ever since then, I was like, I'm not ever going back to ever thinking that way. I'm going to be a fresh wind going forward.
Phenomenal, encouraging. In a world that has a natural bent, a natural draw, natural proclivity towards all things negative.
Yes.
Especially in an environment where we're divided politically, divided racially. This is a fresh wind. I get it. A fresh breath of inspiration that others can glean from. And of course, we'll have all of the links to Marcie's book in the show notes, where to purchase it. all of the above. And we'll also circle back to the book, because what you're going to discover through our conversation is how it was birthed, when it was birthed, and how it's woven all throughout Marcie's life and personality. So we're definitely going to look forward to that. Tell me this. What audience will benefit, you believe, the most from it?
What inspired me to put it out for the public, because, most times, especially, unfortunately, in our Black communities, we suffer in silence, and we don't want people to know that we actually went through some stuff. It's like, oh my God, you got to keep this persona of that everything is wonderful and everything is working together just beautifully. When in actuality, it wasn't, and so I had wrote it down, but I was like, if I share this with the world, they're going to have a glimpse inside of my not so perfect life that and so I had a conversation with Fred. I was like, do you mind if I, told the world about what we went through and how God brought us out? And he was like, that's an amazing idea, because you are now able to help so many people. So that's why I put it out. I put my own life on blast, so that other people can know you don't have to suffer in your relationships. There are ways for you to come out and be victorious and get back to loving like God wants us to.
So much there to unpack. You said something that made me think of an unstated rule that resides within our context. And that unstated rule says whatever happens in our house stays in our house. You didn't do that. You didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
And you put, as you said, your life on blast. What was the result? What was it that you were fearful of when you decided to do that?
I was scared, first of all, because I'm telling my business. You don't tell your business.
Right, right.
So, that was the biggest part of it, is that, like, wow, you really gonna say this? You really gonna tell people that this was happening? Because on the outside, people looking in, we show people highlights of our lives. So what people saw was happiness, and, we got it all together, and oh my God, this is just, relationship goals, all of that kind of stuff. But I think that people needed to know that in order to get to those people that we see in longevity, 40, 50, 60 years married and still loving and liking each other, not bitter, they had to go through some stuff. And so I didn't want to give anybody any false hope, but that marriage is work, any relationship is work. And so if you're willing to do the work together, you can come out victorious. So,
yes.
And then the other thing was, I ain't want nobody else telling my business. So if my business is going to get told, I'm going to tell it so that I can tell it right.
Yes. I love that. Told you all, credible leader in her own right, and you're going to hear more as we continue to navigate this path. But Marcie illustrates something that our parents taught us, and that is control the story.
Yep.
Get out ahead of it.
Yep.
And in getting out ahead of it, a fresh wind was born, a book was written, and that just shows that there is a way you can profit, and not just financially, profit from your pain. So kudos to you for navigating that space and giving all of us hope. All right, now it's time to pull the covers off of some taboos, some long-held traditions, and many who do know, we're both PKs. Our dad was a pastor, and mom was a prayer warrior, backbone of that ministry. So we know ministry, grew up in ministry, saw the great things ministry has done, but we've also experienced the pain of ministry. That's another show. Matter of fact, got to stick a pin there. We got to bring some pre-Ks on, preachers' kids, to tell their stories. But nevertheless, our dad was traditional, missionary, Baptist church pastor, convention leader, and anyone who navigates in Baptist circles, especially missionary Baptist circles, know that there's a constant tension that we live with women, involving women in ministry. So I know this might be slightly off topic, but yet it's teeing up for the real question. Talk to us a little bit about your experience as being a woman in ministry.
Ooh, Jesus. That's that is a good way to segue in, because it has not all been peaches and cream. You feel like you have a call on your life from God himself, God Almighty, the one that made everything. And to have people question or second guess or tell you, what God didn't tell him. Like he told me, he didn't have to tell you what he told me. So, that's a hard pill to swallow, because then now you're looking for approval from man. And it's like, but I know what God has said to me. So, it's a very, very sticky place to be. I remember when I knew that I was called to minister, and how afraid I was to tell my mom. I'm like, dang, this is, and I know you remember us having a conversation.
Yes.
I'm like, how I'm gonna tell her, and so I was so afraid, just to even have that conversation. But I knew I was confident in what God had told me, and so I just had to bite the bullet and say, this is what God has told me to do, Mom. And so she accepted that with open arms, and almost like she was waiting on me to tell her something that she had already seen. And so that kind of took that pressure off. I'm like, if my mama is okay with it, I don't care what nobody else got to say, and so you do get in those spaces where there are a lot of traditions, about what you can and cannot wear, where you can and cannot stand.
Yes.
If I'm invited to a place, I would do a background check, like, hey, ask, somebody else, like an Elder Lisa Battle who preached everywhere. Hey, can you wear pants? Do I got to stand at the podium? Okay, or should I go to the pulpit? What am I supposed to do in this crazy space? All the while, it puts so much pressure on you trying to make sure that you stay into the conformed way that, you get nervous to even speak the word. And so, and I don't think that God wanted it to be that difficult. If he gave me the gift, if he gave me the call, if he put his word in my mouth, I shouldn't have to go through all these hoops even before I can even open up my mouth. And so that's probably one of the hardest parts, is that, for women in ministry, they put us in a box. You can lead the women, and you can teach Sunday school. And
come on now.
But all this other stuff, you lead us to the men. And then I'm like, sometimes it's like, what you saying you're not even saying anything. So, you should welcome a fresh perspective, sometimes. And so that is probably the hardest part, navigating those, like you call, man spaces. It's trying to be respectful of people's houses, but at the same time, knowing what God has called you to do.
So true. And you said so much that I'm already knowing and sensing that you're going to come back, and we're going to talk about that specifically. And I remember quite vividly, we were all out to dinner one Sunday evening, and the conversation came up regarding a ministry issue and how we approach it. And it was strange and funny because the men at the table approached it ideologically, as a man would think. But when we heard you all talk about it, you all approached it from a nurturing standpoint. Let's bring our collective geniuses together and resolve an issue.
Yes.
And I heard that, I saw that, I experienced that, and I knew that we had to get the perspective of someone who, like you mentioned, you knew God called you, but yet and still you had to navigate in traditional man spaces while resisting the urge of being put in a box.
Yes.
So with that stated, I really am excited for this question in this segment, Overlooked by Others, Handpicked by God. Tell us about a time when you were overlooked.
Oh, wow. I thought about this one long and hard. I have probably a whole bunch. But the one that I can think of the most is most recently, like a little bit before we went into this pandemic, and I was talking to Fred, which is my husband, and he was, and at that time we were still pastoring, and I was like, man, what if we get all these preachers, all of these churches, all of these people we're going for the same goal. We just want to win souls for Christ. We just want to make an impact in the kingdom. What if we came together and collaborated and brought all of our energies together? Because some people are good in worship, some people are good in finances, some people are good in leadership. And we brought all those forces together and we collaborated and we built something big and great together. Okay. He liked that idea. I even told you about it, right? I mean, you and I had that conversation.
I remember.
And the next thing I know is that, and so y'all had conversations with other pastors. Oh, that's a good idea. Let us do that. And so you guys started having these meetings called the Merge.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it was my idea. Can I come? And you can't articulate somebody else's idea, because I had all these great ideas and we could do this and we could do that. And this is how we can make it work. And so all the pastors in the city got together and they was having these meetings. And I was told specifically that I could not come. One, because I wasn't a pastor, and two, because I was a girl. And, it's basically like, all the men getting together. We're going to take your little idea and all the men going to get together and we're going to figure this out. So, and so I was asking questions like, hey, well, what was y'all talking about? And what happened? And, what did y'all come up with? And so you guys had a series of meetings, but unfortunately it dwindled down and it kind of fizzled out. Boom, COVID hits. Everybody is scrambling.
My God.
Is searching. Everybody has questions. Everybody is doing all of this. And I was talking because he and I, we have great conversations. So it wasn't like it wasn't combative at all. I was like, see, had y'all let me come to the meetings when we was talking about the Merge, maybe some of that, hit wouldn't have hit so hard. Maybe we would have had a plan in place for those people who didn't have a building or those people who didn't have streaming equipment. And so now at the last minute, everybody's scrambling. And so out of that birth was what we created together was Social Media Ministry, the group on Facebook. I'm like, okay, well, let me try to help them in some kind of way. So even though I was rejected and was not allowed to even come into that space, I still made myself available after when the pandemic hit, so that we can at least have some type of thing. Because at the end of the day, I'm all about winning souls for Christ. I'm all about kingdom building. And so even if it can't be my idea, I was still willing to kind of go in and help in any way I could.
Phenomenal story. And it's always good when you see yourself in the story, because I do remember vividly that happening and it happening as you describe. So that just goes to show you the trappings of tradition and how it can get in the way of the best idea. And I know now that I'm older, I'm more reflective in regards to issues as such. And that was an incredible chance to make an impact. And what I'm learning and what that situation taught me, and now you brought it back and now it's super fresh. What that taught me is it's not about what title you have today. It's about who needs to be at the table.
Correct. Yeah.
And going forward, which is why this podcast was launched, and to hear voices as such. That's the question I'm asking before anything. If there's an issue before us, the question is not, will it offend Pastor so-and-so, Bishop so-and-so, Dr. so-and-so, Archangel? We got all these titles now.
Overseer, everybody. Anyway.
All right. The question is, who needs to be at the table? What voice or voices do we need to hear at this particular moment? I was a part of that and saw all of that happen and transpire as such. How did that make you feel? We sort of sidelined you. How did it make you feel?
Well, women are emotional. So of course my feelings was hurt because I knew Not only because nobody really wanted to hear what I had to say or the ideas that I had, because I knew that I had great ideas. But it also kind of hurt because I knew that nothing effective is going to be able to be happening in the kingdom if you're not allowing people who have gifts, talents, ideas to collaborate with one another and to be in those spaces. And so it's like, well, then if I can't sit at your table, I just bring my own table, And so I didn't want to be bitter about it. I didn't want to be upset about it, but I just kind of took my marbles and I just went home and I just like, hey, okay, they don't want to hear what I have to say. So I'm gonna just keep on talking until somebody bites. I'm gonna keep on, and so understand that I don't necessarily need that space or your space to say what I needed to say. And so now I just carved out a little piece of space for my own self. And like whoever want to hear what I got to say, they're gonna come to me versus me trying to insert myself in places that I may not necessarily be welcome.
Did you catch that? All of the phenomenal women leaders who are listening, creating and carving your own space. So what I'm hearing is your response to being overlooked was creating, was it social media in ministry or was it a fresh wind that caused that?
It was a fresh wind pushed out social media ministry, because everything that I do, I always do it through the lens of a fresh wind, because it's like, Marcie, you're bringing positivity, you're bringing, life and breathing life into situations. And so whatever it does is going to push it. And so with that, that's how social media ministry was birthed. I was like, okay, this is my little space that I'm going to carve out. And, I always try to keep it upbeat, light, positive. And at the same time, I probably give away way more than I should,
Sure.
Giving away my thoughts, my ideas, things of that nature, with the hopes that, hey guys, this is something that we can do and we can work on, we could work together on. All you have to do is kind of invest in that. So I think what I would say was that a fresh wind pushes everything that I do, and it just kind of shows itself in different ways.
I love that. Not allowing being overlooked, like David. You remind me so much of David's story from episode 1 with Dr. Christopher Dodd. And I shared how even though he was anointed king and had something to say, input to give, value to add, he went back to shepherding between the time of what God said and what God allowed to happen. He perfected his shepherding skills. So it sounds like to me that's exactly what you did in regards to ministry, from the fresh wind pushing out social media and ministry. I'm going to circle back to that because I want to hear more about that. What a phenomenal episode. And my hope is that you heard something inspiring, something creative, something that helped you push the pause button and reflect. I love this brother. He's going to join us next week for part 2 of The Overlooked Leader. Here's a teaser for you to join us next week. Now that this situation happened and we're talking about leaders who are overlooked but yet doing major things and impacting the kingdom in a major way, what advice would you give to men operating in men's spaces when women come with ideas that could change the landscape of ministry?
Definitely be open, and that's for all of us, especially when it comes to things in ministry, because as you said, women can just kind of give a different perspective, a nurturing perspective. And being that our churches are made up of about 75% women, 80% women,
easily.
So the people that you're trying to minister to, sometimes you don't even have the capacity to understand them, to feel their hearts and things of that nature.
Are you enjoying the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast? If so, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. As a matter of fact, make sure you let everyone know. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave a review. It helps the podcast grow. Thank you. You've been listening to the Clarence Stowers Leadership Podcast. Join us next time for more insights on becoming 1% better each day and leveling up in all areas of life.